All right, in the last module, you determined with whom you'll do your interview, the location, the date, the time. You determined those things. You discussed a little bit about what might get in your way, any obstacles that you have to overcome. Hopefully you have worked around those, or perhaps you've changed the person that you'll be interviewing in order to get a more successful interview. In this module, you'll be focused on developing 10 questions that you want to ask in that interview. Keep in mind those questions need to be open-ended. That means that if you wanted to find out where a person was born, instead of saying, "Were you born in Denton?" you might say, "Tell me where you were born. Tell me about where you were born. Tell me about where you grew up." Those are open-ended questions, and what works with open-ended questions is that the person can answer you in a more thorough way. They aren't just answering yes or no to your question. They are giving you more information. It invites conversation when we use open-ended questions. After you develop those questions and submit those, you'll get some feedback on how to maybe rearrange some of your questions, because it's important that you ask questions that flow in a particular order in addition to being open-ended. You don't want to ask a person a question about their job and then the next question jump to their family and then the next question go back to their employment. So you want to keep the questions in an order that seems to flow so their ideas, their thought process can also flow with your questions. Sometimes people ask me, well, what are we supposed to ask? Or, is there a list of questions that I can choose from? The answer to that is simply ask the person the questions that you really would like to have answers to. And an example is if you're interviewing an employer, if you're interviewing maybe a supervisor, and at some point in your life you might want to take their role, you'd like to work in their industry, you'd like to do a job similar to theirs, ask them questions that could get you some information about what has made them successful, what has their trail to that position looked like. If you're interviewing a friend, get to know them a little bit better. Ask some questions that maybe get to know them. Many times people have the good fortune to interview family members like grandparents or aunts or uncles or even their own parents or siblings. And that's a great bonding opportunity, honestly, to get to know someone at a deeper level. And I think sometimes being able to do an interview for a class actually puts the person you're interviewing at ease because they know they're helping you complete a project, and perhaps that would help them feel less defensive in answering the questions because you're doing it for a project, not just your own personal probing. And you know now, hopefully, that since you've read and worked in the workbook, that sometimes family members or people that are close to us can sometimes feel defensive about the questions that we ask, or perhaps the way that we ask them. Actually, this is a really fun part of time for you in this class, and it's a lot of fun for me to get to read the questions that you're interested in asking. So email if you have any more questions, if you're unclear, if you're unsure. I hope that we're responding promptly to your emails and your questions, and we can help you along in this process.